I hope you are having a nice week. And well, as you know, last week I had a little internet problems, and I already recorded this video, but I'm gonna do it again because I need to quickly mention that since it's a puente, you are going to have an extra day to do this weekend's assignment. Okay, so instead of Monday, you have until Tuesday, so do it. Damn it. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to read you a story. It's called Hop Frog. It's from one of my favorite authors. His name is Edgar Allan Poe. You probably have heard of him. This is probably my favorite book. I don't know the look of it. It's called Complete Tales and Poems by Edgar Allan Poe. So I need to find a page. Here it is, Hop Frog. It's a pretty gruesome story. So what's gonna happen? I'm gonna read to you half of the story, more or less half, a little bit more than half. And what you need to do is you need to write the ending of the story, something pretty Edgar Allan Poe style, I think. Okay, so I'm gonna start reading, and it's gonna be a long video, so be prepared. Try, when you write the end, try not to look at in Wikipedia or in another place. Or in another place, try not to look at how it ends, how the story ends. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Okay, so Hop Frog. I never knew anyone so keenly alive to a joke as the king was. He seemed to live only for joking. To tell a good story of the joke kind, and to tell it well, was the surest road to his favor. Thus, it happened that his 7 ministers were all noted for his accomplishments as jokers. They all took after the king too in being large, corpulent, oily men, as well as inimitable jokers. Whether people grow fat by joking, or whether there is something in fat itself which predisposes to a joke, I have never been quite able to determine. But certain it is that a lean joker is a rara avis in terris. About the refinement, or as he called them, the ghost of wit, the king troubled himself very little. He had an especial admiration for breadth in a jest, and would often put up with length for the sake of it. Over nicest word him. He would have preferred Revalis Gargantua than Zadig of Voltaire, and upon the whole, practical jokes suited his tastes far better than verbal ones. At the date of my narrative, processing gestures had not altogether gone out of fashion at court. Several of the great continental powers still retained their fools, who wore monthly caps and bells, and who were expected to be always ready with sharp jokes at a moment's notice, in consideration of crumbs that fell from the royal table. Our king, as a matter of fact, retained his fool. This fact is, he requires something in the way of folly, if only to counterbalance the heavy wisdom of the 7 wise men who were his ministers, not to mention himself. His fool, or professional yesterday, was not only a fool, however. His value was trebled in the eye of the king by the fact of his being also a dwarf and a cripple. Pretty dark. Dwarfs were as common in court those days as fools, and many monarchs would have found it difficult to get through their days. Days are rather long at court than elsewhere, without both a jester to laugh with and a dwarf to laugh at. But as I have already observed, your jesters, at 99 cases out of 100, are fat, round, and unwieldy, so that it was no small source of self-gratulation with our king that in Hop Frog, this was the fool's name, he possessed a triplicate treasure in one person. I believe the name Hop Frog was not that given to the dwarf by his sponsors at baptism, but it was conferred upon him by general consent of the several ministers on account of his inability to walk as other men do. In fact, Hop Frog could only get along by a sort of interjectional gait, something between a leap and a wriggle, a movement that afforded illimitable amusement, and of course consolation to the king. For and the king by his whole court was accounted a capital figure. But although Hopfrog, through the distortion of his legs, could move only with great pain and difficulty along a road or floor, by prodigious muscular powers which nature seemed to have bestowed upon his arms, by way of compensation for deficiency on lower limbs, enabled him to perform many feats of wonder dexterity, where trees or ropes were in question or anything else to climb. At such exercises, he certainly much more resembled a squirrel or a small monkey than a frog. I am not able to say with precision from what country Hopfrog originally came. It was some barbarous region, however, that no person ever heard of, a vast distance from the court of our king. Hopfrog, and a young girl very little less dwarfish than himself, had been forcibly carried off from their respective homes in adjoining provinces, and sent as presents to the king by one of the ever victorious generals. Under these circumstances, it is not to be wondered at that a close intimacy arose between the two little captives. Indeed, they soon became friends. Hopfrog, who, although he made a great deal of sport, was by no means popular, had it not in his power to render Trippetta, the girl, many services, but she, on account of her grace and exquisite beauty, although a dwarf, she was universally admired and petted, so she possessed much influence and never failed to use it whenever she could for the benefit of Hopfrog. On some grand state occasion, I forgot what, the king determined to have a masquerade, and whenever a masquerade or anything of that kind occurred at court, the talents both Hopfrog and Trippetta were sure to be called into play. Hopfrog, in especial, was so inventive in the way of getting up pageants, suggesting novel characters, and arranging costumes for masked balls, that nothing could be done, it seemed, without his assistance. The night appointed for the party fete had arrived. A gorgeous hall had been fitted up under Trippetta's size with every kind of device which could possibly give eclat to a masquerade. The whole court was in a fever of expectation. As for costumes and character, it might well be supposed that everybody had come to a decision on such points. Many had made up their minds as to what roles they should assume, a week or even a month in advance, and in fact there was not a particle of indecisions anywhere, except in the king and his 7 ministers. Why they hesitated I never could tell, unless they did it by way of a joke. More probably they found it difficult on account of being so fat to make up their minds, and at all events time flew, and as last resort they sent for Trippetta and Hopfrog. When the two little friends obeyed the summons of the king, they found him sitting at his wine with 7 members of his cabin council, but the monarch, the king, appeared to be in a very bad humor. He knew that Hopfrog was not fond of wine, for it excited the poor cripple almost to madness, and madness is not a comfortable feeling. But the king loved his practical jokes, and took pleasure in forcing Hopfrog to drink and to be merry. "Come here, Hopfrog," said he, as the jester and his friend entered the room. "Swallow this bumper to the health of your absent friends." Here Hopfrog sighed, "And then tell us have the benefit of your invention. We want character men, something novel, out of the way. We are wearied with this everlasting sameness. Come, drink. The wine will brighten your wits." Hopfrog endeavored, as usual, to get up a jest in reply to these advances from the king, but the effort was too much. It happened to be the poor dwarf's birthday. As they commenced to drink, his absent friends forced the tears to his eyes. Many large bitter drops fell into the goblet as he took it humbly from the hand of the tyrant. "Ah, ha, ha, ha," roared the latter, as the dwarf reluctantly drained the beaker. "See what a glass of good wine can do. Why, your eyes are shining already." Poor fellow, his large eyes gleamed, rather than shone, for the effect of the wine in his excitable brain was not more powerful than instantaneous. He placed the goblet nervously on the table and looked around upon the company with a half-insane stare. They all seemed very amused at the success of the king's joke. "And now to business," said the Prime Minister, a very fat man. "Yes," said the king. "Come, lend us your assistance. Characters, my fine fellow. We stand in need of characters, all of us." And as this was serious meant for a joke, his laugh was not confused by the seven. Hopfrog also laughed, although feverishly and somewhat vacantly. "Come, come," said the king impatiently. "Have you nothing to suggest?" "I am thinking of something novel," replied the dwarf, abstractedly, for he was quite bewildered by the wine. "Endeavoring?" cried the tyrant fiercely. "What do you mean by that?" "Oh, I see. You are sulky, and I want more wine. Here, drink this." And he poured another goblet full of and offered it to the cripple, who merely gazed at it, gasping for breath. "Drink, I said," shouted the monster, "or by the fines." The dwarf hesitated. The dwarf grew purple with rage. The courtiers smirked. Trippetta, pale as a corpse, advanced to the monarch's seat and, falling on her knees before him, implored him to spare her friend. The tyrant regarded her for some moments in evident wonder at her audacity. He seemed quite at a loss what to do or say, how most becomingly to express his indignation. At last, without uttering a syllable, he pushed her away from him violently and threw the contents of the brimming goblet in her face. The poor girl got up the best as she could, and not daring to sigh, resumed her position at the foot of the table. There was a dead silence for about half a minute, during which the falling of a leaf or a feather might have been heard. It was interrupted by a low but harsh and protracted sound, which seemed to come at once from every corner of the room. What are you making that noise?" demanded the king, turning furiously to the dwarf. The latter seemed to have recovered in great measure from his intoxication, and looking fixedly but quietly at the king's face, merely ejaculated, How could it be me?" The sounds appeared to come from without. "I fancy it was the parrot at the window, whetting his bill upon his cage wires." "True," said the king, as if much relieved by the suggestion. "But, out of the honor of a knight, I could have sworn it was the grating of a vagabond's teeth." The dwarf laughed, and displayed a set of large, powerful, very repulsive teeth. Moreover, he avowed his perfect willingness to swallow much wine desired. The king was pacified, and having drained another bumper with no very perceptible effect, Hopfrog entered at once with the spirit into the plans for the masquerade. "I cannot tell what was the association of the idea," observed he very quietly, and as if he had never tasted wine in his life. "But just after your Majesty had struck the girl and thrown the wine in her face, just after your Majesty had done this, and while the parrot was making that odd noise outside the window, there came into my mind a capital inversion, one of my own country frolics, often enacted among us at our masquerades. But here it will be new altogether. Unfortunately, however, it requires a company of 8 persons, and here we are," cried the king, laughing at his acute discovery of coincidence. "8 to a fraction, and I and my 7 ministers. Come, what is the diversion?" "We call it," replied the cripple, "the 8 change orangutans, and it really is excellent sport if well enacted." "We will enact it," remarked the king, drawing himself up and lowering his eyelids. "The beauty of the game," continued Hopfrog, "lies in the fright it occasions among the women." "Capital!" roared in chorus the monarch and his ministry. "I will keep you as orangutans," proceeded the dwarf. "Leave you all that to me. The resemblance shall be so striking that the company of masquerades will take you for real beasts. And of course, they will be as much terrified as astonished. Oh, this is exquisite, said the king. Hopefrog, I will make a man out of you. The chains are for the purpose of increasing the confusion by janglings. You are supposed to have escaped from your keepers. Your Majesty cannot conceive the effect produced at a masquerade by 8 chained orangutans, imagined to be real ones by most of the company, and rushing in savage cries among the crowd of delicately and gorgeously habited men and women. The contrast is inimitable. It must be, said the king. The council arose hurriedly to put in execution the scheme of Hopfrog. Alrighty, so I think I'm gonna stop right here. Okay, so that's more or less half the story. Oh, it's almost the ending. So what you need to do is to write the complete ending. Not the complete ending, of course. What you imagine happens at the end of the story. Remember, try not to look for it online. It's a very popular tale story, so you might find it online, but try to imagine something on your own. So the story is quite long and it's not that difficult, but it's very old English and it's funny looking. My book, I got it in a used book store. I love it. It costs like 100 pesos. It's my favorite book, probably. It's the one I read the most. Okay, so it's a pretty gruesome story. It's kind of sad, and the end is very bloody, but okay, so great something. So you remember you have till Tuesday to do this, and as always, I'm going to give you word limits. So if you are in 5th semester, you should write 60 words. If you are in 3rd semester, write 40, and if you are in 2nd semester, write more or less 30 words. If you extend more, no problem. Alrighty, so have a very nice puente. Go shopping. Okay, see you on Tuesday. Bye.